Welcome to CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast with Business Solutions MVPs George Dubinsky, Joel Lindstrom, and Sean the CRM Hobbit Tabor. This episode of CRM Audio is sponsored by Alexa CRM. WordPress powers more than 25% of all the websites on the internet and is the number one choice for blogs, websites, and portals because it's open source, simple to use, reliable, and extendable. Dynamics CRM has become a de facto standard in sales, marketing, customer service, and industry solutions. Now they can work together thanks to the Dynamics CRM WordPress plugin built with love by the Alexa CRM team. Capture forms, engage your users and customers, all without writing any code. Control your site in WordPress, keeping your data in CRM. To build the plugin, Alexa CRM has created an open source Dynamics CRM PHP toolkit, unlocking the world of Dynamics for PHP developers. Download your 30-day trial from alexacrm.com/plugin and instantly create a portal by connecting your CRM and WordPress site. We thank Alexa CRM for their sponsorship of CRM Audio. My hands together because somebody said last episode they could hear me typing in the background. So I'm going to do my best to restrain myself from typing during this episode.
Okay. I'll be taking notes.
All right, good. So there's a few pieces of news. I think we're waiting for the full news of the spring wave to hit us. One of the news is that Microsoft has plowed into the Gartner quadrant for analytics. Really came from nothing to leading.
I wonder what Scott Sewell did know before he decided to abandon effectively Dynamics or CRM ship and jumped over to the Power BI and analytics. I wonder if he knew something beforehand, because looking at the quadrant, I'd say Microsoft is like runaway winner. There's no one anywhere near except Tableau. Have you heard of them?
Oh yeah. See, I saw 3 people on the plane I was riding on the other day working on Tableau. So yeah, I know it's out there, and we have some clients who use Tableau with CRM. So I guess for the Dynamics world, whether you're using Power BI or you're using Tableau, as long as you're using CRM with it, it's okay.
Yeah, well, according to the quadrant, Tableau is just a smidgen above Microsoft as a leader, but they're way behind as a visionary. So they've got the goods, they don't have the vision.
Right. It just seems to me like things are changing so fast in that area. It's, is there anybody out there who has a BI solution that's more than a year old now? It just seems like everybody I know is trying these new solutions from Power BI or Click or Tableau, and it just seems like you want to pick something and let it ripen and mature.
Yeah, I think the right way to go about it is just pick one, particularly if you have skill set in one, and just go with it. If you don't have any, I'd say, and you in Dynamics world, Power BI seems to be a very, very logical choice. Though my question is basically to Captain is that when are we gonna get proper authentication and authorization and filtering in Power BI?
That's a good question, because that's the one thing. If you listen to the episode we did about security, we talked a lot about that, about how when you take data out to Power BI or really any third-party analytics tool, you lose that security layer that you have with charts and dashboards and views within Dynamics.
Unless you copy the POA. You remember the infamous POA table or Principal Object Access table. You copy it to Power BI as well, and you replicate the access rules that Microsoft has implemented in Dynamics 365. You replicate them in Power BI, which...
Well, and that's one of the things we found with the new export service. for Dynamics is it will actually get some of those tables that aren't exposed through things like Advanced Find. And one of those things is the POA table. So you can actually put that out, export that to Azure SQL, and if you want to, I don't know why you would, but if you wanted to, you could figure out how to recreate that. But even with the POA table, if you get down into the guts of it, it's very difficult to reproduce all the inherited shares and everything.
Yeah, it's like you have to know how it works, which I don't, for example. I don't believe there is any public documentation. There are some documentation describing some of the flags in POA table, but nothing that would help you create end-to-end solutions. So I'd say give up now.
Yeah, don't. Well, and I think too, though, security is necessary when you're on the granular record level, whereas when you get to the abstract, when you get to aggregating a million records, you can do it in a way that doesn't have the doesn't impact security, but gives, like what's our pipeline this year versus last year, without showing the sensitive fields on the opportunity that you want to protect in CRM too.
Well, and yeah, it obviously begs the question, like if you restrict, let's say, salespeople by region or by department or by business unit, in effect, right? So when they run show me the total pipeline for the company, and they see the measly $300,000 in the pipeline, saying, is that all our company doing? Whilst Power BI would show 700 million in the pipeline, and it just means that they're not pulling their weight in their department. So the question is are we skewing the figure when we restricting security to the business unit, right? And present the picture of all opportunities in the pipeline without indicating to the user that's actually, guys, your opportunities only. So, and you're right. Like when you're talking about the company as whole, there is no reason why would you filter it down to a specific business unit. Yeah, you have to take care of hiding sensitive data. If you do have sensitive data in the opportunities, then you would do that. But otherwise, yeah, the whole picture would be nice to have.
Right, and if you haven't heard it yet, you should listen to the latest episode of the Captain Red Lace's Power BI podcast, because there's some brand new shiny dashboard templates for Dynamics, specifically around sales. And I think there's a customer service one coming too. The one that's out now is the sales one, and it's a great place to start if you haven't used Power BI, because it's an actual usable example, better than the content packs they had a few months ago that has some really nice. I could see it being an actual starting point that you use to build your own sales dashboard. But this is not the Power BI podcast, so let's move on to another topic.
Power BI.
Pretty much the only. Probably the biggest product news of late this week is the new version of USD, Unified Service Desk, version 2.2.1 was released. And there's a couple things. It does a lot to improve reliability and performance. One thing that's kind of a small thing, but I think will be really popular, especially in very busy call centers and other places. A lot of places that use USD have a lot of high pressure type environment, like you have calls coming in and going out, and you don't want the agent's hands to leave the keyboard. There's now a number of very useful keyboard shortcuts to increase the usability. And there's also, go ahead.
Yeah. With the shortcuts, I think what's important, there is now ability to create your own shortcuts and navigate between the panels. So when you create in a panel for laying out your controls on it, you can actually assign your own shortcuts to those panels, so users can quickly navigate between notes, note taking, and CRM. Let's say contact information screen and the agent script and things like that. So.
Okay, good. It also introduces a new API called Safe Dispatcher, And this API will help you build robust hosted controls that are more reliable and easily diagnosable. And you can make existing hosted controls updated and take advantage of the new API by making one line of code change. Mr. Developer, what does that mean?
Okay, yeah, I was just going to say that you're just reading it without understanding a word.
Yeah, what's API mean?
No, look, mostly this release, apart from the shortcuts, is behind the scene kind of developer release, but the changes are quite useful. The things that they introduced are very, very useful. To start with, there is a extensive exception login. So if you get an exception in your control, I think there is now a new API call. I don't have it in front of me, like log exception on the trace writer, and it will just record plentiful of information without you needing to dig into exceptions and figure out what's going on. So it will help for troubleshooting. But Safe Dispatcher, basically, when you write in a WPF application, which is what USD is. So when you write in WPF application, you have to be very careful where you are in terms of in terms of which thread you're on. There is this UI thread that you should be very careful doing updates on, or taking long time to execute some things because you're blocking UI and things like that. So it's a multi-threaded application, and you have to be careful when executing things, calling long-running processes and things like that. So what Safe Dispatcher does, it's actually assist you when you're creating your own hosted controls, which sometimes would do things that take time, like calling into a web service and waiting for a reply. And if you're too lazy to figure out, or don't know enough knowledge to figure out how to do safe threading, this Safe Dispatcher control simplifies this task to no extent. It's just one-liner would guarantee that your control, regardless how badly behaved it is, or regardless how blocking it is and how long does it take for it to do its job, is not going to block USD. Users will be able to continue their work, and it all becomes very, very responsive and kind of less error prone, more bulletproof, improves overall user experience. So that's in a nutshell what it is. But
so does this prevent a hosted control, say, that freezes from locking up USD?
Correct. Yes, that's basically a nice 5-6 words summary of what I just said in 5 minutes.
That is something that is needed, because, for example, a screen pop's one example that I've seen in the wild, where something, either due to resources on the machine or something, makes that freeze and the whole USD becomes unusable. So that's good.
Something like phone call comes in and people were too lazy to do updates on a proper thread. So what they do, they start talking to their CTI backend on UI thread, meaning so whilst they figure out who the call is from, where do I dispatch the call and things like that, the whole UI is frozen. So it becomes unresponsive. So that the Safe Dispatcher, yes, it does address exactly this problem. So whilst it's pure development release, what it seems like, the implications will be that the new builds using these features will be much more robust and much more user-friendly. So yeah, that's cool stuff.
Okay, great. Speaking of cool stuff, I have gotten into Flow in a fairly big way. I had played with it before, but my one example of a flow that I wanted to use, I couldn't figure out how to do. And here's the scenario, which is a task is created for me or assigned to me in Dynamics, I wanted to create a task on my Wunderlist because I use Wunderlist instead of using Exchange tasks because of the richer functionality, the subtasks, the better use of attachments, things like that.
We've been through that before. Okay, let's not.
Yeah. Go back to our conversations with Neil Benson. Anyway, but I was failing because it's not intuitive to how you do the equals current user. So it looks like you go.
Why would you want to do that? I thought you're willingly helping others, so you would do other tasks as well.
Yeah, I could finish. Yeah, so here's the thing: is it worked? I could get when a task came in, I created it, but I would get Sean's tasks. I don't want Sean's tasks. I want to give Sean more tasks.
No one wants Sean's tasks.
But but the problem was it's not intuitive because you can filter by owner and say owner ID equals, and to me it looks like I should type in either the name or the ID of the user, but it just didn't work. So thanks to David Yak, and I'm planning on putting this on a tip of the day, he gave me an example of what he had done as a training class. And what you got to do, which makes sense, I guess, in that there is a way to do it, and you could do it dynamically, so the way it's structured would work for any user that runs this in the context of them. But basically, you add a step that basically gets the current Office 365 user profile, and then you compare either the ID, or I use the primary email address and said if the email address of the owner user equals the email address on the current user's Office 365, then create the task. It works beautifully. And
that's one of my kind of, I wouldn't say pet hate with Flow, but where it shows up its deficiency, because it tries to hide the complexity, underlying complexity of logic apps, and it's doing a great job. But when it comes to simple things like, I need to figure out if this account is if that designated account, and I know that under the hood I already have ID of a target account, for example, but I can't just compare IDs because in user interface I need an object that I can just drag and drop, right? So what I need to do a fake query to the accounts and return an object, and then this object will become something I can drag and drop and compare. And that's effectively what you're doing with the user IDs. So you go to Office 365 and say, get me the user. Fingers crossed it's the same ID. I'm not sure. Is it the same ID? Well, what are you actually comparing? User?
I'm not comparing ID. I'm comparing an attribute on the user record, like the email address.
Oh,
so I'm
okay.
saying, does the email address of the owning user in CRM equal the email address on the current user's Office 365 profile?
So you're using the fact that user is actually Office 365. You can get to the profile, and all I need to do is to figure out to fake my email, and my task will be as good as done, right?
Right. And again, going back to our discussion, I think last week about logic apps versus Flow, I'm not disputing what you said about logic apps being the stronger and more enterprise solution than Flow. I don't have a license for logic apps, though. I do for Flow. So that.
To me, how does that work?
Well, just through my Office 365, I've got Flow, flow.microsoft.com. I have access to it.
No, but that Flow requires you to subscribe either to have a Flow as a separate add-on, or it requires you to be subscribed to a plan.
Right, and
E1.
through my company, my E1 plan gets me Flow. That's what I'm saying.
What are you saying? Logic apps. Oh, I know. They said Joel is not a developer, so let's not give him access to logic apps. That's what they said, right?
Right. So some of the other flows I've set up, I have set one up that OneDrive syncs my pictures from my phone, but it puts them all in this big OneDrive Photos folder where I have a structure by year of all my pictures. So now I have a flow that moves new pictures to the 2017 folder. I have I use, when I have receipts with travel, I scan them with my phone and use Cam Scanner, and that puts them in a OneDrive receipts folder. But I also use my bank and have a receipt repository there. So now I've got a flow that when a receipt file goes in the receipt folder, it emails from my Gmail, not my Office 365, but it emails from my Gmail where my bank account is to my bank. But the thing I discovered that I really like is the buttons. If you haven't looked at it, there's a mobile button control that when you open up the Flow app on iOS or Android, or I'm assuming Windows Phone, you can create buttons for manually triggering flows. For example, block off an hour in my calendar. I have a meeting that comes up, I block it off. You can do things like moving files, or send yourself push notifications. I don't know where I am, so you hit a button and it'll tell you your location.
Oh, that's handy for 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. But here's where this degraded to is. It's also a very good tool for pranks. Okay. Because,
hold on, before we get into pranks, let's talk about the real stuff, like finding out where you are at 2 a.m. Those buttons live in flow.microsoft.com on the site, right? So
yes,
can you create something like a desktop, the what do you call it? The shortcut on, let's say, iOS, a shortcut on the screen that you tap and it executes the flow.
I haven't found a way to do that. You have to open up the app and then you've got all your buttons.
So yeah, that would be handy because like where I am, I want to have an icon on the screen. So where I am, and like block an hour, things like that. So
or email your wife and tell her you'll be home in 15 minutes.
That should be automatic. There is no reason to.
So I actually, though it kind of degraded into pranks for me, which everything does for me, it seems like. But I figured out I created a flow. There's a Facebook, you can do Facebook things. And for example, when a post is added to your Facebook wall, based on the contents of that post, you can do something, put it in a spreadsheet, email somebody, something like that. So, to try it out, I made a flow that whenever anybody posted to my wall with the word Jerry, it would email my friend Jerry Martin and would send him the contents of the post. I thought it was a public service. He could know when people are talking about him or something like that.
Ouch.
And even people that didn't know Jerry were commenting with the word Jerry. I don't understand why.
No, that's cute, but I'm thinking about something more useful. Someone published MVP API on MVP discussion groups. As MVPs, we need to report once a year on the things that we've done, right? And
right.
It's all recorded on private MVP site and things like that. So I wonder if we can automate it fully, like you do a Facebook post and it's plonk, and you put like a keyword, CRM or Dynamics 365, or you hashtag it, and it actually posts automatically as your contribution to the world. So you don't have to do anything. That would be cool.
I also see a lot of capability in the push notification feature. So for example, there's things I might want to get notified from, like a blog, like CRM Tip of the Day, but either they don't have an app or I don't want to download another app. I can create a push notification from an RSS feed. So if I wanted to see when's there a new CRM Tip of the Day or new CRM audio episode, I could create a flow that gives me a push notification whenever a new item is added to the RSS feed.
Oh, that's interesting. We should definitely get Dave Yak come in and talk about the bot he wrote, the Dynamics 365 bot, I think for Skype. So you authenticate yourself and then you start asking silly questions, and it actually taps into CRM Tip of the Day And like you ask what's Salesforce, the bot will redirect you and say, read tip number one, and things
Right.
like that. So that was really cool. We should get Dave to talk about bot framework and how to use it with Dynamics 365 in general and have fun with
Right.
it.
Right. So Flow for me has moved from this nebulous service that I'm not sure where it fits to all these different uses I see for it. I also see a lot of potential in synchronizing online storage. So I like the idea of, I've got, Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive for Business. I like the idea of having certain files and certain folders that I have redundant copies of. So if one goes down or I lose one or whatever, I can I have redundant backups. And so I've created some flows that move between OneDrive and OneDrive for Business, and I could add Dropbox and Google Drive and other things to that. So it's, again, not as powerful as Logic Apps, but
No, look,
very approachable for people who aren't developers.
look, I'm warming up to Flow. I understand the use, right? Just what I'm saying is that it is built on top of Logic Apps, so they share a lot of infrastructure. They share UI, they share capabilities. So one gets something, it means the other one got the same. The one thing I urge you to people look into is how dependent you are on that particular service. Flow doesn't have SLAs, and Flow genuinely is slower to pick up things, um, uh, as in like real time. So with Logic Apps, there is SLA. You can rely on things to happen. Like I have a test. I've done tests for the Microsoft Ignite, which closed off last week. I had a test where I would raise a function versus Logic Apps versus Flow to notify me by SMS that something has happened in Dynamics 365. And inevitably, like Logic Apps, the Flow would be distant third because it's just slower to talk to other things. I don't know how or what it's doing, what app plan it's on in Microsoft Azure, but the end result is that it's kind of a bit less reliable. So if you build an enterprise solution, then definitely go for Logic Apps. If you're building a personal service and you say, yeah, okay, I don't really care when this photo is synchronized now or in 30 minutes, by all means, Flow is a great tool. So definitely, it's
So
got
here's
its
a
place.
question: Does Logic Apps have all the same services that Flow does?
And more.
Okay. So here's some other thoughts. And you talk about being slow. Here's an interesting thing. When I was playing with my task thing, though, as far as synchronizing from CRM to Wunderlist, my flow writing to Wunderlist showed up before my task showed up in my Exchange task from CRM using server-side sync.
Ah,
And so
that's
here's the
interesting.
question is, at what point does it make sense to replace workflows with a Logic app or flow? For example, I'm thinking the ones that have the biggest tax on performance, the weight conditions, that type of thing. I'm seeing that you could really create a weight condition if you wanted to, wait a few hours or wait a day and then do something. Logic apps or Flow can do that kind of thing as well. And so, does it make sense to have some of that? If maybe it's not mission critical, but if it's, say, notify somebody a day later, offloading that stuff to Logic apps or Flow.
Um, yeah, there's kind of decoupling architecture is good, but the consequences could be there could be some unintended consequences. Let's say, for example, because when you're doing a wait for something inside CRM, uh, you kind of in control from inside CRM. You in control of what's going on. So you can go in, check the logs, check the waiting tasks, and say, hey, look, this workflow doesn't make any sense anymore. Let's kill all the waiting processes that gonna wait either forever, for the next months. Let's kill them all, so you can go ahead and cancel them all and clean it up. Once you take the execution outside of CRM, God knows who's waiting for what and where. So you might find yourself in a situation where, 2 months down the track, is suddenly some influx of some data flowing into CRM or being extracted from CRM, going God knows where. So it brings up obviously other topics like security and things like that. Like who should be allowed to take the execution process outside of CRM and execute in their private sandpit? Would it be Flow or Logic Apps or something like that?
But if I had one user, one hard to please user that asked me for a bunch of notification emails that I know will slow down CRM, I could see giving that guy, let's call him Sean. We could give Sean Flow and say, go to town, create whatever notifications you want, knowing that he can go crazy. He might get them, sometimes might not, but we're not going to slow everybody else down to make him happy.
That's interesting. Brings another point that you may not think you're slowing things down, but let's say Sean is actually being a Sean and creates like 20,000 different waiting processes. There are two things. How you get notified about, let's say, a record gets created in CRM. There are a couple things you can do. I'm not sure if the second method did make it to Flow. In Logic Apps, you can now see two methods. Get notification when records get created, right? Which is a polling one. So you have change tracking enabled on the entity, and Flow or Logic Apps would go to CRM and say, has anything changed in the last 5 minutes? Right? And in Logic Apps, you can actually configure the interval, the polling interval. The other one is notification through the service bus. So when Logic Apps notified immediately through the service bus when record gets created, I'm not sure. Are you seeing that in Flow?
It doesn't give you a choice, so I don't know which approach it's using. It's
just one choice.
You can do something when it gets created or updated.
Yeah. That's the polling one. There is a second one which is currently in preview in Logic Apps, which is basically an instant notification because it uses service bus to notify. And now imagine you create 20,000 of those. So you're going to hog all those resources anyway. You're gonna, with the Flow, you're gonna poll your CRM, so you're gonna hit it every time, every 3 minutes, asking, has anything changed? Has anything changed? Has anything changed? Or you're gonna create the service bus notification. So either way, you are going to consume resources. The other thing to remember is that are there any limitations on the number of flows that you can create? I was just saying that Logic Apps run, it's a paid resource in Azure. So if you create 20,000 Logic Apps, you're going to pay for those. I wonder, is it like 200 flows per user, or is there some limitations?
I don't know. I'll look into that. I don't know.
I think that there should be it's basically pure resource consumption. So what I'm saying is the bottom line is that resources can be consumed regardless whether you take execution out or not. They just consumed in a different place. And CRM is going to bear the Sean's wrath of Sean, regardless whether Sean is sitting inside CRM and waiting for things, or outside CRM and waiting for
One thing I did notice is, I don't know if there's a limit on the total number of flows, but there are limitations on certain services. For example, the Bing weather service. I had one flow that I would hit the button and it would give me the weather forecast. I created another one. I think it was when I hit the third one, it said you've reached the limit of number of API calls you can do to Bing weather.
So I had it with you, Joel.
Yeah, I've already told you what the weather is going to be. You can't do this. You can't use it anymore. Here's the other interesting use case that I came up with is, the Yammer integration, which nobody ever talks about anymore. The big shortcoming, or one of the big shortcomings of that, was the ability to create auto posts. So, Activity Feeds has this great feature where when an activity gets created, or an appointment gets created or whatever, I can have it post to the wall and say, opportunity created for XYZ company. And you can't use a workflow to do that with Yammer, but with Flow I can have an event in CRM create a Yammer post to a certain group or something and put whatever fields I want in that update. Same thing with Slack. I could do a Slack update. So that to me is also interesting of, may allow us to, in some scenarios, move away from activity feeds where people just want a wall that the sales manager wants to be notified whenever something in his or her area, an opportunity closes or an order gets entered or case gets updated or something.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at KingswaySoft. KingswaySoft is a leading integration solution provider offering software solutions that make data integration affordable and painlessly easy. Thousands of enterprise clients from over 65 countries and regions rely on KingswaySoft to integrate data with various application systems in order to drive their business efficiency and fully leverage their information assets. KingswaySoft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, NAV, GP, SL, as well as many other applications such as Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. Whether you need one solution or several, KingswaySoft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration process as quick and easy as possible. Many of their clients have seen 3 to 10 times greater data integration performance after switching to the SSIS integration toolkit.
Seriously, my first concern with the Flow is that people should know when to use and when to not to use it. From DevOps point of view, my concern about Flow is that how do you control all these micro things, microservices that people create for themselves? Should you control it at all? It would be hard. It's like you now getting requests from people. Oh, Joel, the thing I've set up to notify myself about the opportunities, it doesn't work anymore. And you say, what thing? Oh, I've set up this flow, and say, what flow? And suddenly you find yourself as a DevOps, as part of DevOps, you find in maintaining those flows for users because they stopped working. Where do you draw the line? Which actually brings a quite interesting topic. If you go to Google Chrome now and say type internet speed, yeah, we used to use this quite useful service, speedtest.net, right? That measures things up. How fast is your internet connection? And now I've got internet speed, and the first pop-up, the results contain this large pop-up which says run, not a pop-up but insert, which says run speed test. So when I click, it runs the speed test. It's a very neat panel. It's a very neat applet HTML5. I think it's HTML5 that runs and shows my connection currently 55 megabits. And let me run the speedtest.net and say what they have to say. But the point I'm trying to make that you have this beautiful microservice and you do service for the community, you earn some money through the advertisement, everyone is happy, right? And then Google comes along and takes it away from you effectively, kills 70% of your user base. Interestingly enough, speed test shows 100.
Yeah, I get faster. I get faster on speed test than I do on Google as well.
I guess it depends where the servers are, because my speed test server literally the next hop. My ISP runs a speed test server on the infrastructure. So it's like I hop to the router, and the next hop is to their router, and then the server. So it's really, there is nothing in between.
Try it in Bing. It doesn't open up a new window. You can do it without opening up a new window.
In the Bing browser?
Yeah, in Bing, just type internet speed in Bing, and there's a...
Oh, I'm trying internet speed. But the point is that... Oh, hold on. Oh, speed test. Yeah, it's right in line.
Bing thinks
the
I'm
point
faster
is
than
that
Google.
the big guys come along and take this microservice. Oh, that's the slowest.
It's faster for me.
That's the slowest. Okay. So, okay. All we achieved today is that Bing shows the slowest one. Closely coming second is Google. And by far, speed test shows the fastest internet connection. So I'm sticking with speed test, if you ask me.
All right. So before we'll have...
No, the point is, hold on. Yeah, just to close topic, like if you're ISV and you build in service, how careful you need to be to build a service that doesn't get killed by someone like Microsoft or Google waltzing in and killing your service. So they're saying, oh, build microservices, it's resilient, it's fast, it's maintainable, and what's not. And now you find yourself that you build a beautiful microservice or a small service that does very specific thing, and you start earning money as ISV, and then Microsoft releases as part of Dynamics 365, and your business is gone. Like editable grid, for example. Right?
That's the risk. All right, so we will have our special guest.
You don't care about ISVs, do you?
We are an ISV in a way. We do industry solutions.
Yeah.
So anyway, before we get to our guest, I wanted to, we normally have a tool, and I have a totally useless tool, but it's a lot of fun this week, and that is fakeupdate.net. And what this is a great prank site where they have update screens like almost every version of Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. And the idea is, on your unsuspecting victim, coworker, or spouse, when they're not looking, open this up in a browser. It's like fakeupdate.net/win10u/index.html. That'll get you the Windows 10 version. And it looks just like that blue screen that you get when your updates are getting installed.
And I'm moving cursor. So let me drop it.
Go F11 to do full screen. And then here's the great thing is it keeps going once it gets to 100. Like it'll be 188%, 189%. And people will not know. It's great. Just pull that up and get their reaction.
Yeah, I'm updating Windows on my second screen, so that's great. Can I give something useful to people to work with? Now, my tool of the day. I was looking for the tool to write quickly to write some documentation for the product, and because we keep most of our stuff in GitHub as a source control, so I looked into GitHub.io. Or GitHub Pages, as they're known. They run on top of Jekyll engine, so it's built on Ruby, but don't be put off by that. I don't know Ruby, for example, and I was able to put together a few pages. What's nice about it, you create your pages using Markdown, so you just write in text, and I'm a big fan of Markdown. And it supports Liquid, which has got its roots in Ruby For those of you who think that Liquid was invented by .NET, think again, because it's got its roots in Ruby. So it supports Markdown and Liquid, but it produces static pages. And I found myself, and you just push them to a GitHub and they get published. So I found that it works exceptionally well, creates a really nice either blog or documentation for your product, if you're using GitHub in particular.
Now, is there a limit to the number of page views you can have with a GitHub page like that? I thought there was some kind of limit.
Good question. So just read documentation on GitHub pages, set it up. It's really, really easy. The only thing I found that will break things, I started to use Markdown Editor Windows app, and then suddenly all my pages got broken. They're not published. Turns out that this app uses different carry-on line feed sequence, the end of line sequence, and it breaks Jekyll badly. So my advice, use Visual Studio Code. It's got preview, it's got Markdown tools, add-ons or plugins or whatever. It's got inline preview for Markdown. Give it a go. It's really easy to create a set of static pages like documentation. Keep them in the same source control. If you use GitHub for your other stuff. So
okay,
yeah, that would.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes along with the useless fake update site. I'd like to introduce our guest. Tony Stein from CRMUG is here with us. So Tony is here to talk about the CRMUG Focus Conference coming up in a couple months here. So Tony, tell us about Focus. What's the focus of Focus?
Yeah, interesting choice of event name, isn't it? But it very simply, it's properly named for the sake of the user groups as part of CRMUG and the thousands of customers and partners and other users out there. You know, in this changing landscape of events, in particular with what Microsoft is doing with Envision and Ignite and some of those things, and essentially with the lack of convergence, we said, for all those Dynamics users that are in the spring time frame of a given year, there really is no targeted event for the core user of Dynamics CRM or Dynamics 365. So we said, you know what, we don't want to replicate or do what we do in the fall, which is the summit event of the year, the marquee event, and we also have one of those planned in Amsterdam this April. But we said we need to do something that allows an opportunity for us to go a little deeper with content for all the users out there that may not get to travel, may not get to go in October, but would have a chance to go to a target event where we don't really do keynotes, we don't do general sessions where there's big pomp and circumstance and that sort of thing. It is literally kind of an attitude and an approach of intermediate to advanced content where we dive into 90-minute breakout sessions for 2 straight days. And so it's really just targeted, get a bunch of people together for 2 days, roll up your sleeves, and dive in for 90-minute breakout sessions. And we'll have a total of 48 topics, and there's 3 tracks that target the sales kind of user, the sales track, the service track, and then the citizen developer track. And the intent of the sales and service track, Joel, was to kind of target the roles of core CRM sales users, mobile CRM users, maybe sales executive management, some sales operations. And then on the service side, it could be the service user, the call center user, the field service, project service users, anybody that essentially would associate themselves in a customer care or omni-channel kind of support environment would be part of the service track. And in those 2 tracks for sales and service, we're trying to think of a couple topics. One would be, there would be a thought leadership topic and there'd be a functional topic. And we approach the functional topics as this is physically showing you how to use the application better in Dynamics 365 or CRM. And then the other part of that is the thought leadership. It'd be more for the sales or service executive or leader that needs to think about how CRM or Dynamics 365 fits into the fold for their organization. So kind of thought leadership, functional. And then the last track is really a fun one, since there's so many people that associate to the user group, CRMUG, as tied to kind of the power user, the administrator, the project owner. And there are a lot of these folks that are very interested in extending CRM or 365, but they're not quite developers yet. They don't have the code skills. So we thought of developing a bunch of content, of which, Joel, you and Sean and others are helping deliver some of that great content that you can allude to, but it's aimed at helping these targeted roles for project owners, administrators, and others understand everything they can do to extend out of the box in their environment, but also develop and learn how to start.
And we're calling that the citizen developer, right?
That's correct.
So the developer wannabe, or the not quite real developer?
A little bit of both. Not quite.
Sorry,
not quite.
Tony, you said there will be
George-worthy yet.
no keynote. I'm just looking at the agenda, and there's 1.5 hours wasted on the Summit EMEA Welcome and Opening keynote.
Well, that's for the Summit EMEA event, which is a very summit-like experience that we're having in Amsterdam this April 3 through the 7th.
We're talking about the Focus Conference, which is in St. Louis, the 8th and 9th. Looks like the 8th and 9th are CRM and AX, and then the 10th and 11th are NAV and Power BI.
So what's the okay? So which is what's the URL for that? So I'm on the
UGFocus.com.
UGFocus.com.
And when this audio CRM audio airs, we will have you'll see all 48 of the content breakout sessions posted live on the website under the event tab. So you'll just go to the homepage event tab, and you'll see all the content, of which I know Joel and Sean are presenting here in North America. So it's great to have some of the tipsters on board to deliver some of the great learning for everyone. We appreciate that.
So with a conference in EMEA in April and one in North America in May, you got the whole world covered in 2 months there.
Yes, until we find a reason to get down in George's neck of the woods in New Zealand and Australia.
Hey, look, you know what?
There.
Let me just check something, because I'm coming to participate in Build Conference, which is May 10th to 12th. So I might just stop by this Focus one. And talk,
you definitely should. So Sean and I are going to be there. A couple of the sessions I'm going to be doing, and I believe Sean's joining me for some of them. I've got one about mobile, specifically the sales experience. We're doing one about common CRM configurator mistakes and how to avoid them. And also got another one just digging into business processes like task flows, process flows, workflows, how to make sense of all those tools, how to design your business processes and dynamics. So it should be some good stuff there. There's also going to be some roundtable discussions I might join in as well. So yeah, George, come along. We can always record an episode there.
Is that the only thing? Yeah, I thought you were going to say, George, come along. We could listen to your developer's wisdom, and all you come up with, we can get another episode. Yeah, great. But yeah, Tony, that's great. So I'll contact you outside of this talk, and we'll see. Maybe we can put some real developers content for people who want to be a developer. So that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is fantastic. And how's EMEA registrations going?
It's going well, really well, and we are, we're trying to make sure that when I think about our approach to the EMEA and the Dynamics European customer segment, we have a lot of chapters, a lot of local subsidiaries of chapters and customers rallying around, interacting and connecting with each other. And last year was kind of our dive into that market, where we did an event in Stuttgart, Germany, called European Congress. But it was a smaller event, and we were just getting our feet started. And now this year we have over 94 topics, different session breakouts, and there's more information posted at summitemea.com. And there's just a ton of things there for user by user, very similar to what you saw in stateside for Summit, where you would see, of course, a lot of great content led by customers, but also the great MVPs Always good representation from the CRM tipsters, from CRM Tip of the Day, which is one of those bookmarks for all of us in the user group that everybody loves to visit. So you guys do a great job with that. And that's the beauty of the community. It's kind of a three-pronged approach. It's from the customer segment, it's from some great partner members and some MVPs that contribute, and then of course Microsoft participates. And Summit EMEA will feature a lot of Dynamics 365 learning coming from the product teams as well.
Okay, fantastic. Are we gonna hear more great farming stories from you, Tony?
No farming stories from me. I'll leave the farming hat at home this time. Honestly, I'm getting so removed from it. I don't know a lot about farming anymore. I'll leave that to my brother and my father to manage too. But
we're just farming for CRM success. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's right.
And as I mentioned before, I'm keep plugging this along. If you're someone who is going to EMEA UG Summit and you're stuck in Europe on the week of 20th of March and without better things to do, and if you want to become a better developer, come into Stockholm and listen to yours truly talking about great developers things for 3 days in a row. Well, you do some exercises as well, but yeah, we'll learn all the greatest and latest in Dynamics 365 development for developers.
Oh, very good. Well, the user group would welcome any sort of the academy training you do, George. You do a great job with that, so I'm sure there's a great dev audience up there. Maybe some of these citizen developers from Focus would find value in that if we can get you to Nashville for this October for Summit 2017.
Oh, I'm definitely coming. I haven't booked my travel yet, but definitely coming to Nashville. Yes.
All right.
So that looks, look, the whole year turning into one big year of conferences all around the world. So I'm thinking of every year I should buy just 2 round-the-world tickets, and just travel.
Sooner or later we'll get you to move here, George. We're working on it.
Yeah. I wonder what my family's got to say about that. And my travel as well. So.
All right. Well, Tony, we appreciate you joining us. And we're definitely looking forward to Focus. And I'm sure that our listeners in other parts of the world are looking forward to CRMUG EMEA. So thanks for joining us. And George, it's good as always. This has been CRM Audio, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM podcast. You can hear previous episodes on our website, crm.audio. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, follow us on Twitter at CRM Audio, or leave us a comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/CRM podcast. If you have any topic suggestions or questions that you would like for us to answer on a future episode, please drop us an email at voice@crm.audio. Special thanks to Dale Simmons for our theme music. Go check out his website, dalesimmons.com. Please join us next time on CRM Audio.